You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
I would say if I could give a bit of advice to the young professional who's struggling, because we're all struggling. Some of us are middle-aged and struggling. It's always a struggle. The main thing that you can do is just don't quit. Just don't give up. Like this horse that I showed last week in the intermediate A, I've had that horse since he was a foal. I've started that horse. He's been tricky. He's a really good boy. He's never naughty, but his balance is very complicated. And I tried to give this horse to Michael, my coach, several times. I'm like, can you just take this horse? It's so talented. Can you just take it to the Olympics? Because I cannot ride it. I am not good enough to ride it. And, he was always like, no, this is your horse and you're going to learn how to ride it. And I just kept picking away at it. And we would go and lose, 62, 64, 62, 64. And now at 9 years old, it's starting to come together. And he got 69 last weekend and one of his first IAs. And he's 9 years old and he's fantastic. And it's just just don't quit, even when the going gets tough. And I don't quit on the horses either. Like if they're tricky, if they're hard, it's a puzzle. Figure it out. That's your job as a trainer, is to figure it out. And whatever you learn from that, you will take to the next 100 horses. So for the young professionals, when the going gets tough, don't quit, because you will get through it. Just stick around long enough. But everybody wants to get off the bus when it gets a little uncomfortable. But get comfortable being uncomfortable, kids.
Welcome to the Dressage Today podcast, featuring conversations with respected riders, industry leaders, and horse care experts. Our goal is to inform, educate, and inspire dressage riders of all levels. I'm Dressage Today editor, Alana Harrison, and this episode, sponsored by Tribute, is with dressage rider and trainer Lauren Chumley, who's often referred to by her peers as the coolest dressage trainer, wasn't born into a horse family. But even from a young age, the telltale signs that she indeed had the recessive horse gene were there. From the moment she could read, she started poring over every horse book she could get her hands on, and amassed an unusually large collection of Breyer horses for a 12-year-old that she still has to this day. Lauren pleaded for riding lessons, but her parents, who came from humble means, thought the hobby was too expensive. It was her grandmother, however, who would eventually turn her riding dreams into reality. One fortuitous summer, Lauren went to stay with her grandparents at Quantico Marine Corps Base in Virginia, where her grandfather was stationed. When her grandmother decided she wanted to learn how to ride, Lauren jumped at the chance to take riding lessons with her on the base. Now, the decorated Grand Prix dressage rider laughs that her parents likely never forgave her grandmother for fostering her budding passion. Following her introduction to riding, Lauren started taking lessons at a local barn in Hamilton, Ohio, where she quickly found her calling in dressage. At 14, she started working with dressage trainer Rebecca Stramont and went on to also work for the Sorum Fjord Farm, one of the largest Norwegian fjord breeding farms in the country, where she gained a wealth of knowledge and experience working with different breeds. After attending clinics with Grand Prix dressage rider Silke Rembach for 3 consecutive years, she was invited to join Silke's team as an assistant trainer. In 2011, Lauren branched out to start her own training and sales business at Hilltop Farm, based out of New Jersey and Florida. Today, she is a USDF bronze, silver, and gold medalist with distinction and has made her mark in both dressage and eventing, proving her diverse talent as a rider. Lauren, who regularly works with Michael Bregdell, has competed multiple self-trained horses through Grand Prix and has earned many USDF year-end and all breeds awards at the national levels. In 2024, Lauren received one of 2 Dressage Foundation and Barlow Ramsey grants for U.S. bred horses with her then 8-year-old homebred Dutch warm-blood mare, Lilo Dallas, who she is currently competing with at the Grand Prix level. She and one of her other current Grand Prix mounts, Santa Barbara Dash, also have an amazing partnership and won the 3-star Intermediate 1 Freestyle at the 2022 Dressage at Devon during a downpour. Lauren is a regular competitor at the USEF Festival of Champions, Dressage at Devon, USDF Regional Championships, and the U.S. Dressage Finals. She has high hopes for her pipeline of North American bred young horses and hopes to start them in the FEI Young Horses classes in the future. In this episode of the Dressage Today podcast, we talked to Lauren about her superstar mare, Lilo Dallas, her experience training a variety of breeds for dressage, and her passion for teaching up-and-coming dressage professionals to prioritize developing young horses for the sport. Before we jump into the conversation, a quick word from this episode's sponsor, Tribute. What if your horse's nutrition only changed when it truly mattered? That's the philosophy behind Tribute Equine Nutrition, a fixed formula brand. They don't make changes unless new research shows they can make their feeds meaningfully better, supporting things like digestibility, nutrient absorption, and overall performance. That's why Tribute Equine Nutrition is upgrading every formula in their lineup, building on improvements made to their best sellers and rolling those advances out across 2026. To celebrate, Tribute has hidden golden tickets in random bags worth up to a year's supply of feed for one horse. Horse owners can also get a free personalized feeding plan, and new customers receive their first bag shipped free. Visit tributeequinenutrition.com and click Get a Feed Plan to learn more. That's tributeequinenutrition.com. Hi, Lauren. Thank you so much for joining us on the Dressage Today podcast. We are so excited to have you today.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Excellent. Lauren, in 2024, you received one of 2 Dressage Foundation and Barlow Ramsey grants for U.S. bred horses with your then 8-year-old Dutch warm-blood mare, Lilo Dallas. Can you tell us about that experience and about your partnership with her?
The Dressage Foundation grant was truly life-changing for me. I own Lilu and a bunch of other horses, and I am self-funded. I have a few lovely ladies that help me out with some of the expenses for just her. But owning your own horses is just, it's such a difficult endeavor. So the Dressage Foundation really made it possible for us to really, buckle down and get a ton of training, go to Florida, work with Michael Bragdell, who's my longtime coach. And it was just, it really helped get us from, point A at Small Tour to the Grand Prix. And I'm forever grateful for that opportunity.
Amazing. And can you tell us a little bit more like what she's like to ride and train?
Well, Lilu, I've had her since she was a baby. She's the first baby horse I ever bought. There have been about 500 million since then. But I call her my first child. And I bought her off of the internet. I did not go see her. There was like a little tiny video of her in a ring out in Arizona at her wonderful breeder's farm. And I thought she was like a good color, and I liked the breeding. And I thought, like she had a kind of a cool mechanic in her movement. And I had contacted the breeder about her, but she was, I mean, this is about, this is 10 years ago or 9 years ago. She was more than I had. And I said, okay, well, thank you. But, if anything changes, let me know. So the breeder did keep in touch with me. I don't know how long it was, 6 months, 8 months. And she would just periodically message me and be like, hey, I would take a little bit less for her. And I'd be like, it's still too much, still too much for me. It was a good price, but I'm broke. So eventually the price got down to where I was like, okay, I'll bite. So I bought her and I shipped her out from Arizona, and her breeder is in like what I think is the southwestern corner of Arizona. And I didn't realize how far away that is from New Jersey. It's a really long way. I mean, she's practically in like California, basically, like Tijuana, like way out there. Right. So I was thinking, Arizona. Okay. Really far. So she shipped out here, and I think I was teaching a lesson or something when the shipper got there. And the girls had my driveway is such that you cannot get a tractor trailer up into it. So they have to kind of park down like below this little hill, and they walk the horses up. So the girls were like, oh, shipper's here. We're going to go get the baby horse. And I'm like, cool. So I finished teaching and I walk out of the barn and they're leading this horse up. And I'm like, oh my God. At that moment I had realized I never asked how tall she was. She looked like a pony. It was like a pony foal. I was like, oh my goodness, she's very tall.
Wow.
And I'm not that tall. I'm 5'5" and I've got short little hobbit legs. Yeah. But she was little for a long time. When I took her to the Dutch Curring when she was 3, she did super well in the IBOP and the DG Bar Cup and everything, but she couldn't get her star because she was not 16 hands at 3 years old. So the Dutch told me, they're like, yeah, you got to bring her back later. And then COVID hit. So I had several years until, they canceled all the currings. So when I brought her back as a 6-year-old, she was in fact 16-1, which is where she stands now. So yeah, I've had Lulu a long time, her whole life, basically. We started her at my farm. We've done everything with her. I showed her in material at 3. I didn't do 4-year-olds with her. I did 5-year-olds with her, but we did not make the Festival of Champions. We were not good enough. She wasn't really a young horse winner. She was kind of like, her walk is okay, her canter's okay, and her trot is fantastic, but it wasn't, she just wasn't really like young horse. When she was 6, I did qualify for Lamplight, and I went and I was last. And then as a 7-year-old, she qualified for both the 7-year-old, the FEI 7-year-old division, and the developing free St. George. And you could only do one division. So, Michael and I decided to put her in the 7-year-olds because she was a little bit insecure about the changes. She would do them, but she's a mare and she knows when it's wrong. So if she missed a change, she would become worried. So I said, let's do the 7-year-olds because there's fewer changes. So that's what we did. And we did it. And I think we were last. And then as an 8-year-old, she qualified for developing Grand Prix and the I-1 championships. And we opted to do the I-1 championships mostly because I thought that she would maybe be a little more competitive in there. And also you got to do the whole small tour. So you got to do the Prix St. George, the I-1, and the freestyle. And I really just wanted to ride my freestyle. And we were 3rd in that, so that was fun.
Oh, wow.
And then last year at 9, she qualified for the developing Grand Prix championships. It was pretty green. I can't remember where we finished, maybe like 9th or 10th out of 15. The first, my I2 was pretty green. The Grand Prix test was much, much better, but they averaged the 2 scores. So we did okay. And this year she's 10, and we're, getting ready to do our developing Grand Prix qualifiers again this year. And we'll hopefully move up to the big Grand Prix later this summer.
Exciting. And can you tell us, Lauren, a little bit like what her personality is like behind the scenes?
So she was one of the easiest horses to start that I've ever had. We used to joke that she would like go in her stall and watch YouTube at night because we would like put the saddle on and she's like, oh yeah, I read about this. And I was like, okay, you got to go on the bit. And she's like, yeah, I know. And she's always just like, yeah, I know. I'm like, you got to load on the trailer. Okay, I already know. Like she already knew everything. She's very smart. She's not overly sensitive and not overly reactive. And she's always been that way. I mean, I showed her as a 3 or a 4-year-old at Devon, and I don't even think I lunged her. Like, she's just a good girl.
Yeah.
Really, really easy horse in the barn. I'm a bit of a redneck. So like I tie all my horses to the trailer. Like they're just like, no, they're not like, crazy quirky dressage horses that you have to be like, you can only do certain things with them. No, this one I used to joke and say I could tie her to the door of my truck and leave her there for hours. She'd be fine. She would just hang out.
You're like, all right. Yeah.
Yeah. She's very chill. She's a very chill horse, but it's cool because I feel like because her mind is so solid and her temperament is so good, I could ride her in any arena in the world.
That's amazing.
Which is really, really cool. Yeah, she's been a really fun horse, and she travels really well because I've been dragging her all over the country since she was 3. And, she's just very well traveled, very comfortable traveling. She's just easy. She's an easy horse.
Yeah, and so special that, you guys have been together for so long, for sure. And Lauren, you and one of your other current mounts, Santa Barbara Dash, won the 3-star intermediate 1 freestyle at the 2022 dressage at Devon during a downpour. Can you tell us about that experience and your partnership with this mare?
So I still have that horse. We got her as a 4-year-old. And I love that horse. That horse is not like a team Grand Prix horse, but that she's definitely reached pet status. She did. So that win at Devon that year, that was my first CDI win ever in my life. And that was I think the second year I was working with Michael Bragdell, and I had gone from like getting 63, 64 in the small tour. And then Michael got us up into the 70s, right? So I did the freestyle in the pouring rain, and I didn't know Michael that well. And I was like, there is no way this guy is going to come out here and coach me in this. It was torrential, right? Like the ring was water. It wasn't like, oh, the ring is wet. It was a lake. But I spent several years eventing Santa Barbara before I got her as an event horse, actually, which is hilarious. I ran her through training level. She won as a 4-year-old. She won the future event horse East Coast Championship, which was hilarious because she was not a good event horse when it jumps got bigger. And she was like reserve at the AECs the next year. Like she did a lot of eventing. There's some video of it on YouTube. It's actually really funny. But like, so she was no stranger to water and bad footing. And she's also, that horse is just a freaking war horse. She does not care. Like she went tromping down that center line, like, let's get it. And she's still like that. But that was such a cool, first of all, I'm out there getting ready to warm up, and here comes Michael, like in this like raincoat poncho thing, looking like a drowned rat. I'm soaked. Like when you get out of the ocean, bathing suit, water coming out of it, like water in places you don't even want to talk about. Like my boots have water in them. Okay. And we ride this freestyle, and it was for sure the best ride she'd ever done. And like, again, I've, just been working with Michael for a little while at this point, a year or two. And like, it's like one of those moments you'll never forget. Like I remember I was like, that was a good freestyle. Like that went really well. Right. But I didn't expect anything because like I suck. Right. So like I like walk out of the ring, and they throw the scores up on the big screen, and they were all over 70. And it was just like the coolest feeling. Like I will never forget that. Like if I could bottle that feeling, I would, because it's like, you work for years and years and years to get one ride like that. And then we just keep going for years and years more because we're insane. So that was my first big win with her, and it was awesome.
That's incredible. And it's like, how do you even concentrate and focus when you're that drenched? And
it was actually so ridiculous. It was fun. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Like, and I'm like, I'm not like your normal dressage rider. I'm insane. So like the other riders in the freestyle would come up.
Blood in you.
Oh, a lot. They would like come up the tunnel to like look at the footing, and I would like heckle them from the arena. I'm like, scratch, do it, Silva Martin, scratch. And the Silva's like, I'm not scratching if you're not scratching. Like, you know, I'm like a class 5 heckler. So I was like heckling everybody, tromping around the ring with Michael. Like, are you going to focus? I'm like, I am focused. So it was so like absurd. The situation was so absurd. It was so much fun. It was so fun.
Amazing. And Lauren, we also thought it was so interesting that you work with such a wide variety of breeds, including like Morgans and Fjords that aren't quite as traditional in dressage, at least these days. Can you tell us about working with different breeds and like what you feel like it's really taught you as a horse person?
So like a good number of people know that like I have been in fjords my whole life. My first job I ever got when I was in like junior high was at a fjord farm in Ohio. So I've had fjords in my life forever, which is like weird, but also hilarious. And I love them. I have 10 of them in my barn right now. I work for another breeder now in New Jersey. I have all her breeding stallions in her. Yeah. We have 40 stalls and 10 of them are fjords. And I love it. But I have her breeding stallions who are competing and also breeding. And then, her mares that are competing. And we start them and we sell some of them, but she's a big supporter of mine and also a very close friend. But I grew up riding weird things. Like we didn't, my family's not wealthy, right? Still not. And you rode what you could. And I went through this phase of life where I was like, oh, if I don't have a fancy warm blood and go to NAYC, like I'm a failure. I'll never be a professional. And now that I'm in my 40s, it was literally the best thing that ever happened to me was not having access to those things, because I got to learn how to put flying changes on thoroughbreds, what to do when they bolt, how to start I've started 17-year-old fjords before that have done nothing but had babies. Like, Morgans, I rode Morgans. Like we had a lot of Morgans. One of my first Grand Prix pony, the first one I ever trained a Grand Prix was a Welsh Morgan Cross. And my second one was a pure Morgan. And he's actually still alive. He's in his 20s. He's leased by a client, and she just did 4th level with him last weekend and did super. And she's hoping to do Prix St. George this summer. So I love the weird breeds. I learned so much. They talk about like, oh, you need tools in your toolbox. Like if I had just grown up riding, doing the juniors, doing the young riders, doing the U25, my toolbox would be tiny. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And so it's actually like, I think one of the things that I thought when I was younger was the greatest advantage, I think has turned into my greatest asset. Is that we rode, my first horse I ever bought was a saddlebred thoroughbred cross. I still own him. He's still alive somehow.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, I have all these really old horses. They're all still alive, but most of them. But like, just learning how to ride those horses and how to do canter pirouettes on something that canters with 4 beats by nature. Like, but you learn so much, and maybe you're not winning, but then later on in life, when you're lucky enough to have the nice horses, the Lilus and the Santa Barbaras and a bunch of other ones, like you use all that still. So I think I was very lucky to have been what I thought was disadvantaged, because now I realize it's a huge advantage.
Yeah, that's incredible. And Lauren, you're well known for producing both young horses and riders, and are passionate about passing on the importance of teaching up-and-coming dressage professionals to prioritize developing young horses for the sport versus not just advancing through the levels. Would you mind speaking a bit more about that and why you feel it's so important?
This is one of the hills that I will likely die on. I think that we have a huge disconnect in this country between people that can ride young horses and people that can produce CDI Grand Prix horses for 70+%. I think there's an ocean in between the two here. In Europe, that's not the case. So, you watch people like Lottie Fry, Van Olst and everybody over there, they're just, Blue Horse, everybody, they're just churning out young horses and then they go to Grand Prix. And we don't do that here. Here it's like you have the people that have the young horses and then you have the high performance riders. And the two don't cross. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
And
right.
I think that's a huge disservice to the sport in this country and the development of the sport, because in America, and there's nothing wrong with this, so don't get me wrong. In America, when you want to make a team, you find a sponsor, you go to Europe and you buy like the Dutch B team horse, and then you make the US team. And yes, you can go and play at Aachen or whatever, but you're never gonna medal, because the horses that win over there are horses that are produced. And with a few exceptions, like, Catherine Dufour, obviously, who's a brilliant rider and rides freestyle, who was produced by Charlotte. But like that's not the norm over there. A lot of, Lottie's riding horses that they start at their farm, at Van Ulst,
Yeah.
Glamourdale, Everdale, all of those horses. Right. So I think that for me, I've never had the option. I don't have people in my life that have come to me and said, I've got $2 million to buy you a Grand Prix horse. So I've always had to train them. And honestly, I think that is the way to do it. And if somebody came to me tomorrow and said, I have $1 million to buy you a horse, I would say, I don't want to buy a Grand Prix horse. I want to buy 10 young horses, and we'll make your $1 million. We'll keep the, one or two of the good ones, develop and sell the rest and make your 1 million into 10. You know what I mean? One point in time, somebody asked me, like when I think it was Indian Rock was purchased, they said, oh, wouldn't you want someone to buy Indian Rock for you? That'd be so cool. And I said, I don't want to ride Indian Rock. I mean, I'd love to take him for a spin, but like, I said, I don't want to ride a horse like Indian Rock. I want to train a horse like Indian Rock. Like, that is way more interesting to me, to develop them. Like, I love the competition, but I love developing them and then competing what we produce. And I think that's the only way to sustain the sport in the country and make horses that can go on to podiums. And no, I'm not good enough to do it, but I'm working really hard at it. So who knows? Someday, maybe.
Yeah.
But
Lauren, just curious, what do you think that looks like as far as like in the US, like just promoting more awareness of that particular need?
I think that I think we have to market the development of the horses to the young professional population, because I think a lot of these kids, they have the desire, but they look at the magazines, they look at the podcasts, they look at their Instagram, and they see, I'm not going to name any names because these are wonderful people, but they see these people with incredible resources behind them, and they think, I can do that. That's the dream. Do you know what I mean? Like, the dream is to have somebody else fund you and buy you something. And I would rather we shift these kids' focus into, let's buy a 3-year-old and develop it to be the very best that it can be. And if it's not good enough to do whatever you want to do, whether it's go to NYC, win the regionals, or go to the Olympics, you can sell it and then do it again, because that's a skill set. It's a marketable skill set, right? So I think learning to ride the Prix St. George or the Grand Prix on a trained horse is great, but that does not a horse trainer make. That makes a really good rider. And that's not a marketable skill set, because the number of times that people have called me, clients, I have this great 70% CDI horse that I want you to ride around, is zero. That's not the business, right? So you have to find a way to make money and produce horses. And I like to own my own horses so that I can call the shots, right? And I can dictate their management, their training schedule, when they're ready for this. And it's not that I don't want to deal with owners, because I do have some owners, right? But it's for the high performance horses, like, I want to make the call. I want to make that call. And I don't ever want to get up one morning, pick up my phone, have a text or a voicemail that says, I'm pulling the horse and sending it to X, Y, and Z Olympian. Like, I don't want to deal with that. I mean, I don't want to deal with that. Like, I've lost rides in the past. We all have as professionals, right? Horses I've developed. they've gotten pulled and got, sent to the brighter, shinier, fancier barn with the chandeliers. Fine, that's fine. But basically at this point, I have, oh my gosh, I think 4 horses that are doing Inter A to developing Grand Prix, with another 2 on the way that we're working on. I haven't taken them out yet. And basically, with the skill set that I want people to learn, the professionals, basically, like, even if you lose a horse or a horse goes lame, it's like they can't take that away from you. Do you know what I mean? Like, you will always have this ability to produce a horse, instead of just hoping somebody doesn't decide to pull the horse from you. Or maybe their life changes and they don't want to do horses and they don't want to spend the money because it's astronomically expensive. But then, your career is not subject to the whims of someone else, if that makes any kind of sense, and you control it.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important for the young people, is that they kind of shift their focus away from this, sparkly, shiny Instagram, like somebody bought a horse and then I spend the rest of the day on the beach. Like, and I go to, the Tente Global and stand around, rub elbows with the 1%. That's not work. That's not real life. You can't make money doing that.
Right.
And I don't want to be dependent on that. Personally, I don't want to be dependent on that. But it is a harder road and it's a longer road. But I personally love the development of the young horses. I love teaching them their first flying changes. I love taking them to their first horse shows. I love, and now that my baby horses are all older, they're doing I've just put 2 in their first intermediate A's in the last month. What a joy. What a joy. Horses that I've had since they were little, and now they're starting to piaffe and passage and do ones in the ring. It's such a privilege. Such a privilege. But it took a long time.
That's a cool experience. No, for sure.
I wouldn't trade it. I wouldn't trade it for a Dutch Olympic team horse. That's not what I want to do with my life. My hat is off to those who do. You don't have to work so many hours, and that's great. But I love this. I think it's so cool. And then when I find, people that work for me that also share that passion, I think it's really cool. And it's not a big group, because it takes a long time and people don't want to put in that much time. They want it now, now, now. I want my gold medal now. I want to go do U25 now. I'm like, okay, but then at the end of it, what?
Exactly.
You have a patch on your jacket and you still have no idea how to put a flying change on a horse. So I just think we have to reshift the focus a little bit onto the development, because that's what they do in Europe. And they have an incredible depth of top horses, and we don't.
For sure. Especially after covering this year's World Cup, that was,
yes.
quite impressive.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, to say the least, for sure.
Uh-huh.
And then, Lauren, we understand that you are friends with dressage legends Marcus Orlob and Alice Tarhin. Can you tell us about your friendship with them and kind of how they've helped you in your journey in the sport?
Well, Alice is one of my dearest, closest friends. Alice has been a very dear friend of mine for almost 20 years now, since I moved to New Jersey, actually.
Oh,
and
wow.
2007 is when I met Alice. And I met her. It was my first season in Wellington. I was in my 20s. I might, 22, 23. I was like a kid. And it was her first season in Wellington. And she was riding for the trainer that I was working for, who's Silka Rambach, who's still a close friend of mine. She's wonderful. But we immediately hooked up, because she was still eventing some back then, and I wanted to jump, and we were kind of close in age. Alice is, I think, 5 years older than me. So, and we're both autistic introverts. So we both kind of just clicked immediately. And then at the end of the season, I was going to move back to New Jersey for the first time, because I went I lived in Ohio for 20 years. So I moved to Ohio, Florida. And then we were, after season was over, we were going back to New Jersey, and Silka asked, is there anybody that could, I need to find a room for Lauren to live in. Does anybody have a room I could rent or whatever? And Alice was immediately like, oh, she can live with me. So I lived with Alice on and off collectively for probably 5 years of my life. So I owe her a huge debt. And she let me ride her stallion back then. It was 2011 was my first year going to Lamplight, the Young Horse Championships, with her beautiful Sandro Hit stallion, Summer Hit. And I think we placed third. I was so out of my league, but it was such a cool opportunity. And I mean, I still talk to Alice frequently. Like, again, she's still one of my closest friends. Um, and she always encouraged me to buy the babies and develop the babies because that's what there was no big funding to go buy something trained. So we just kind of figured it out together, and it's been really fun.
Yeah. And can you tell us a bit about your friendship with Marcus as well?
Oh, Marcus.
Don't forget Marcus.
Marcus is like my annoying little brother, even though he's older than me and has way less hair than me. And I hope that you actually put that on the podcast because it's funny. And he'll kill me, but I don't care. Marcus is like my annoying little brother. We're so mean to each other. I got to go to, when he went to Paris, I went over, with my friend Kim, who used to work for Alice. So we got to go and, clap and cheer for him. So that was really fun. But basically, Marcus and I just harass each other endlessly, completely unprofessional at all times. It's a lot of fun.
I love it. Sometimes you need that.
Yeah, it's good for him.
Yeah. Lauren, shifting gears a bit, for listeners who may not know, can you tell us a little bit about your riding roots and how you first got started with horses?
Yeah, so I always liked horses, and there's no horse people in my family. None, zero. So it just like, recessive gene. I don't know what. I like when I was a kid, I had hordes, which I joke about now because because I own way too many horses now myself, like way too many. And I'm like, guys, the signs were there. I mean, I'm like 12 with like 400 Breyers. Okay. Like this is like the hoarding gene was there. And I had never ridden a horse in my life, but I had spent I read horse encyclopedias. Like I was such a nerd. Like I mean, I could probably put bridles together even though I'd never touched one. Right. And I wanted to ride and I wanted riding lessons. And I had a friend that took riding lessons. She was at a jumper barn. And I wanted to, I would go with her and watch her lessons, right? So that was really cool because I could brush the horses. And I'd beg and beg and beg for riding lessons. I'm trying to it's really expensive. It's really expensive. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. And then in the summers, I would go out to Alexandria, Virginia, and I would stay with my grandparents for, I don't know, a month or 6 weeks, like kids did back then. And my grandmother, God bless her, she was a wild lady. She decided in her 40s that she wanted to learn how to ride. And my grandfather was career military. So she started riding at the Quantico Marine Corps Base. And then one summer I went out there and she took me with her and I got riding lessons. And
Wow.
That was it. I'm pretty sure my parents still haven't forgiven her for that because I came home and I was like, I am taking riding lessons. And they're like, oh no. So anyway, that began the just downhill descent into whatever it is I'm doing now. And then when I finally was able to take lessons in Ohio and I started riding they had one of the local park, local park centers had a riding stable. So we started riding there and they only taught lessons 9 months out of the year. They closed down in the winter. And after the first year, I was like, well, I have to ride all year round. So one of the coaches there said, well, I have this mare. You could come and ride her. You could lease her for the winter. Oh, and that's where my trouble really began. It was a little Hanoverian mare, about 15-1. That horse, I still have that horse. She is 36 years old. I rode her. That was my first dressage horse. So I ended up moving to a dressage barn because that's where the horse was in training. And the poor trainer of that horse, I'm sure that the owner was like, hey, I could put this kid on the horse and it will take some expense off of me. And the trainer was pretty much like, this kid is an idiot beginner. What are you doing? I fell off all the time. I was terrible. And I started riding that horse and then riding other horses and then taking lessons from that trainer and then doing dressage and still jumping. And again, I'm terrible, but it just escalated into I would spend all day at the barn and then I'm working at the barn. And then the best day of my life was when I found out that my trainer at the time would let me work off riding lessons if I cleaned stalls. And I was like, oh man, I could do this and not pay money. Sign me up. So that's where my troubles really began. I started working because then I figured out I could ride more horses if I worked more. And that's kind of still true today.
Yeah. Yeah.
So from that dressage barn, I ended up in a different dressage barn, a little bit higher level, and I was there for years. And then they brought in clinicians, right? Because it's fancy now, right? So we had clinicians. So one of the clinicians they brought in was Silke Rambach, who I mentioned earlier, who's a wonderful German import to America. Still a very good friend of mine, and she ended up offering me a job as her assistant. This is like 8 or 10 years later, right? So that's how I ended up in New Jersey. Is I took the job with her, left my beloved fjord farm in Ohio. I'm still friends with that family. They were like grandparents to me. What great people to work for your first job. I was there for 9 years or something. Left my fjord farm, went to Florida, started doing the Florida, New Jersey thing. And I worked for Silka for like 4.5 years as her assistant. And then I decided to start a business for some reason. I don't really remember why I did that. That was a really bad idea. Don't recommend it. And that was in 2011. So we're 15 years on from that. And now I have 2 farms that I work out of in New Jersey. We have about 50 horses. I have FEI riders working for me. We do the Young Horse Championships. We start horses. We do CDI, and I still event. So it's a lot of work, but man, is it fun.
Yeah, sounds like you have quite the full schedule. But when you love what you do, it's not work, right?
No, I mean, it is, but I love a lot of it. I don't love all of it because it's still work, but I've kind of fine-tuned the program. It's geared towards, horse development. That's the number one, focus of our program. We also do a lot of sales because I enjoy that. And I used to have a lot of amateur lady clients, but I pared it down so I could focus more on the developing of the horses and the sales. So I do have a few ladies that are in the barn who are just wonderful. I have a great group of ladies. That's kind of what we do. And I don't teach as much as I used to because, again, I wanted to focus on the training. And I love to teach young professionals. I have actually a few other professionals who are not younger, middle-aged professionals. I help them. A couple of them are doing Grand Prix. They're really fun to work with because they're good riders and they're developing horses. That's really fun for me too. So between the horses, the sales, the showing, the ladies, and the lessons, pretty busy.
Yeah. Just a tad. And Lauren, what was it about dressage that you feel like really resonated with you as opposed to the other equestrian disciplines, even though you do eventing too?
Yeah, well, I'll be real with you. I wanted to be an eventer. That's what I wanted to do. When I was a kid, we lived in Cincinnati, and my parents, again, this was such a dumb thing they let me do. They let me out of school for the week of the Rolex 5-star, right? So this whole little group of young riders, right? So I would, as long as my grades were good, I could leave school. I could get out of school Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I would spend 5 days at the Kentucky Horse Park, which is 2 hours from my house, right? But it was like the road trip of the year, right? So all the kids at the barn were all in junior high and high school. We'd all bundle, trundle up in a van and a camper. And we'd go down there and we'd camp at the campground. And we volunteered at the show, right? So if you volunteered, you could get in for free, which was sweet, right? Because nobody had any money. So we're at the camper, we roast marshmallows, had a great time, made burgers. It was the best week of the year. And we get to watch the whole horse show. We'd work cross country on Saturday and do like crowd control, right? Make sure people don't get run over in the galloping lanes.
Right.
But that was awesome because our group had been there for so long. We usually got one of the better jumps. So we were usually at the head of the leg at the water jump. So we got to sit there and see like Karen O'Connor and all, Andrew Nicholson, all these amazing people come through the head of the lake. And I'm like 15, 16, 17. So this is so cool, right? But that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to run Rolex, okay? So fast forward, I'm not a very good jumper rider. I'm still not a very good jumper rider, but I try really hard and I love it.
Yeah.
So I also don't think I have the stones to go 5-star. Actually, I know I don't. I've run a few 2-stars and I think that's a pretty good size jump for dressage rider. But I did always, it wasn't like I just loved dressage only. I loved horses and I still do. But the dressage was really cool because the first time I got to ride, I'll tell you what hooked me. The first time I got to ride a horse at Silka's and she let me passage it. And I was like, that is the coolest feeling in the world. And I still stand by that.
Yeah.
I still stand by that. Passaging is my favorite thing. It's my favorite thing. Piaffing, underwhelming, anticlimactic, not all it's cracked up to be. Passaging, that is cool. So I love that, but I still love the jumping and I love the eventing and I love the heart those horses have. Their event horses are incredible horses. The good ones, amazing horses. And like, I really liked passaging and I thought it was really cool, the things that horses could do. And I thought it was beautiful because it is beautiful when it's well done and it's seamless and it's harmonious. It is beautiful. And it's also really hard. And it's also, I would say more than a bit cerebral. And I like that. I have a very busy brain that you've probably noticed in the last half hour. So like it really appealed to me in that way. And I also like that you can take an average horse and develop it and make it something beautiful and special. And that was what was really cool for me is, when I would take these, off-breed horses or whatever, and then they could go to FEI, they could go to Grand Prix. And, now it's warm bloods mostly, right? But like Lulu wouldn't have sold at a European auction for six figures. She would have been probably like a $10,000 baby. Like she's not,
Right.
as a young horse, it was not special. But the development is what makes them special. And I think that's so cool. I really love that about the sport.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's such a great perspective. And Lauren, do you struggle with competition nerves at this juncture in your career? And if you do, how do you deal with them?
So the best thing I ever did for my dressage show nerves was start eventing. That's the honest to God truth. Because like in eventing, when it goes wrong, it really, really sucks. And it usually hurts, right? In dressage, like what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You're going to miss a flying change. Oh no. Like it's just like not that it puts it into a bit of a different perspective for me. Like if I have a bad dressage ride, like, okay, I might be annoyed for a little while and like just recuperate, learn, watch the video, learn. If I have a bad cross country ride, it hurts a lot, and I have fallen off a lot on cross country because as stated before, I'm not very good. So like I've fallen off, I've hit jumps, the horses slip, they fall, I fall. My worst injuries have been jumping, not dressaging. And because I'm not very good. But like I don't get so nervous. I won't say I never get nervous. I do get nervous at the bigger. I wouldn't know if it's nervous or excited. Like I just want to ride a good test, but I compete a lot. For example, I'm competing every single weekend this month, and every single weekend I have something in an FEI class, right? So I have a lot of mileage, which is really helpful. And I always competed a lot, even when I was a kid, riding training level. Like I would show up with the Fjord herd and I'd show 4 horses, right? So I have a lot of time in the arena. I know what can go wrong. I've probably done it multiple times. And I get excited at the big competitions like the CDIs or regionals or nationals, Devon, Lamplight especially is a big one for us. So those, I just want to have it's not that I want to win, because of course everyone wants to win, but I want to show my horse as best I can. I want to put in the best test that I can. And that's hard because there's so many variables. So that's, it's not me versus them. It's me versus me. And I've had that mindset for many, 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 many years, which takes a lot of the nervousness out of it, I think, for me. I have also worked with sports psychologists in the past too. Again, not so much for my dressage or for my jumping, because I'm terrible. But it was really helpful, and I can't recommend that enough. And I think, at the upper levels, at the high performance level, it's almost a necessity to have a good sports psychologist on your team.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And Lauren, what would you say you attribute to your success as a rider and a trainer?
Well, I think we have to use the term success loosely. I'm not, I'm doing things. I'm not doing top sport things yet, but the horses are all still young. Um, but I think as far as like the success of building the business and creating the string of horses that we have now, which is just the best I've ever had, um, we work really, really hard. Um, really hard. And for me, it's not, I get tired, especially now that I'm middle aged. I do get tired. The Monday after the horse show is rougher now than it was 10 years ago, which is annoying, but that's life, I guess. Um, Horse show hangover is real, folks. But like, I could ride until 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. every single night if everyone that worked for me wouldn't quit, because I love it and I don't have a life and I have nothing better to do. And I would just keep going. I just enjoy it so much, training the horses and riding the horses, being with the horses. That's my favorite thing to do. So I would do it all day. And I do. But I think that's been a big contributing factor, is that I am not the most talented rider in the world. I'm 5'5" and built kind of like a hobbit, so it's not like I'm physically gifted. Um, but work ethic is I think work ethic will give talent a real run for its money. I really believe that, because I mean, it's certainly gotten me where I am, wherever that is.
Yeah, no, for sure. I love that. Um, and Lauren, I think you and I are about the same age. I have definitely noticed as I have approached middle age, I you ride probably a lot more than I am able to, but it's harder to maintain muscle mass, especially, for women as we get older. Is there anything you do outside of riding to stay in shape? Or are you pretty
Yes,
much in the
I
saddle
do.
constantly?
I am in the saddle constantly, but I also I have a personal trainer and I go to the gym 3 days, maybe four, depending on the week. Sometimes it's two if we're showing. But I go to the gym and I work with a trainer and she kicks my butt and she's horrible and I love her. Um, and I do that because I want to make sure that, as riders, I need a lot of help with like flexibility, range of motion, because I have, if you only ride, you get, very overdeveloped muscle groups. Um, so I like to do some other things too, physically. And don't get me wrong, I do not like to get up at the crack of dawn and drag my sleepy self to the gym. I would rather lay in bed all day, but I can't. So I just get up and do it. And my body feels pretty good. I'm in my early 40s. And I've had a couple of injuries, nothing too crazy, but like, I think, again, the hobbit body type is very hardy. It's very sturdy. Um, I don't have a lot of body pain, which I know I'm very lucky to be able to say that. And I think it's because of the working out and the riding. But I can I can keep riding. It's not like I get to 6 o'clock and I'm like, oh, I can't ride another horse. Oh no, I can keep going. And it's gotten hard now because they were all babies at first, and that was fine because you got to like posting trot around the ring all day. Now they're all FEI. I have to do fancy sit trot. Like, this is now a lot
Yeah.
of work, but I'm pretty fit for riding. Do not ask me to go running with you though. That will be really embarrassing.
Lauren, do you happen to have any like favorite training exercises that you consistently work with your students on, or any favorite like go-to training exercises for your young horses?
Well, the young horses, I like to do. I've gotten in the past few years, thanks to my absolutely brilliant coach, Michael Bragdell. I wasn't so much into the groundwork before I started working with him. And when I started working with him, I was kind of like, what is this rope halter? This is weird. And, he gradually won me over, not by pushing it on me, but just by me observing how he worked with the horses and how his horses were trained and how they responded to him. And I was like, okay. And I had a couple of horses that came to me last year that were a little bit challenging under saddle. And I'm not a timid rider by any means. I'm not a fearful rider, but these two horses had me pretty backed off because they were very athletic and they're very big, and I'm very not big. And, one of them threw me pretty badly in the fall. And I was like, I got to find another way. And then Michael would come and help me with them, and he would do this groundwork. And then I was like, I think I have to buy a freaking rope halter. So I did. I own rope halters. And you know what? Great. I worked all those horses on the ground. Michael guided me. And like, I totally am a believer now in the groundwork. So I've converted. Yeah, I'll say that thanks to just observing his horses. He has a lot of stallions and everything too. So it was really cool to watch him work with them. And I was lucky enough to have that opportunity. And then I thought, you know what? You could do this too. This isn't magic, right? Like, you could figure this out. You don't do anything else all day but horses. So why don't you add this in? So with the young horses, I do a bit of groundwork now, not just like lunging and side reins. I do that too, but like with the rope halter and moving their bodies and teaching them how to yield their shoulders in their middle. And then that does translate to the saddle. Like when I get on a young horse, like when we break the 3-year-olds, as soon as they're, safe and they're okay, I start teaching them, you teach them to move their bodies like you have them moving on the ground. And then they train so much faster because I'm like, okay, you have to go to the corner like this. And they're like, okay, no problem. It's just easier. And then they understand. And then it just expedites the whole process when you start it on the ground, in my humble opinion. And then for the older horses, it's just transitions within the gait, transitions between gaits. We work on the collection, out of collection. I don't drill the movements so much anymore. I've kind of refined it a little bit because some of these horses, the way they're being bred now, which is awesome. They're so athletic and they're such, by nature, extravagant movers, right? If you sit there and ride them for an hour, extended trot, piaffe, passage, collect, it's not good for them. It's too much torque on the joints. So I've kind of consolidated the training a little bit so that, you kind of get down what you need to do, but you don't push them to injury, if that makes sense. And I'm going to knock on wood right now, but I have a pretty good track record. So I think it's I like this approach, and Michael's the same way. Alice is the same way. You're smart, you're careful, you're thoughtful. And it's not so physically demanding on them. And then they last a long time. And then you can have a horse that's doing the Grand Prix at 9 and still doing the Grand Prix at 19. And that's what I want. I want to make horses that have longevity, because it takes that long to get the Grand Prix figured out.
Exactly. Well, exactly. And probably so reflective of kind of that philosophy with all of the older horses, that you still have, even, if they're living out their retirement.
I have probably 5 horses over 20 years old that are still competing FEI.
That's
in eventing and dressage.
That is unbelievable.
Yes, but for us, it's normal. And I think it should be normal.
Yeah.
And I have a great veterinarian who keeps us on the straight and narrow. I stay on top of their vet care. They get what they need, but we don't go, it's not crazy. Do you know what I mean? It's not like we're injecting joints every month or something. It's nothing like that. But I think having a really brilliant sport horse vet on your side is also someone that's just essential, and a good farrier. I also have a really good farrier. Yeah. And those guys keep these horses going. And I mean, we've had these horses going at Grand Prix for years and years and years. And I think that's really cool, because everybody says, oh, well, the young horse program will break a horse down. No, not if you train it right. That's more of a management issue than a program issue, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Not if you're thoughtful and careful and you're not out there drilling, pushing. But for a lot of these horses, the way they're bred now, the movements and the level that's required, it's not hard for them physically because they're so purpose bred now. And it's easy. I have one horse that he's 9 years old. He's going to start the developing Grand Prix this summer, probably next month, hopefully. But that horse has been waiting his entire life to passage. Since he was 3 years old, he's like, look how my legs move. I'm like, okay, buddy, tone it down. You're not ready for that, right? And now that he's, last year we started to introduce it, he was like, thank God, finally. You will let me dance the dance of my people. And the piaffe passage on him is the easiest part of the test. No kidding. So that's been really, really fun. It's been really fun.
And Lauren, what would you say the hardest part of this sport is for you?
The hardest part of the sport for me has always been the financial aspect. Because I'm an idiot and I've chosen to own my own string of horses, it's tough. It's really tough. Again, I have a small group of people who are clients, but also very dear friends that help me with, Lilu. But that's one horse, And yes, she has the most expenses because she's competing at the highest level right now and doing all the, big, hairy, fancy, expensive shows. And I'm forever grateful for their support and things like the Dressage Foundation. But like paying for lessons, paying for the diesel to get to lessons. I drive to Hilltop Farm religiously once a week. Once a week, I take a whole day. I take 3 or 4 horses down there and I have lessons with Michael. And it's been fantastic. It's a lot of lessons, but I think last year or this winter, I kind of sat down and somebody asked me, they're like, well, how many Grand Prix horses have you and Michael done together? And I think it's something like 9 together, like not just like horses he's helped me with. Those are just, ones I rode. I think it's something like 8 or 9 that we've done together now. So like, it's worth the day, the day out of work and the driving and the diesel money. We don't talk about that right now, but like, it's a big expense for sure. But, the Dressage Foundation made a lot of that possible for me so that I could keep training. Because I think it's so critical to have somebody on the ground helping you. You cannot do this alone. You cannot do this alone. And I think that's been just amazing. But the finances involved in keeping, high performance horses, it's a lot. It's a lot. And I feel very fortunate that, because of how I grew up and where I trained and the things I learned when I was younger, we can start our own horses. I don't have to send horses out for training. So that's great. Like we can do everything in-house. And I bring in Michael when I need help, which is all the time. So all the time with everything. But like that's the hard part is trying to make enough income to keep the business going and keep your dreams alive, basically. So, I have a couple baby horses that I try to buy, like maybe 1 or 2 a year, and we start them. And I know pretty early on if it's a horse I want to keep and develop, or if it's like, this horse is a super amateur horse. It doesn't mean it won't go to Grand Prix. It's just maybe not the caliber of Grand Prix that I'm looking for. So I will sell those to fund the others.
Yeah.
And I sell, probably 1 or 2 a year of my own horses, to keep the funding going. But it's not easy. It's really not easy. And then when you have young horses, I had to put one down at 3, one had a congenital joint issue. He didn't make it to the upper levels, but most of them do. So if you train them well and you're, conscientious with your management and everything. So as long as you're increasing the value on the horse, like I can keep it for 5 years and then sell it, for 6 figures as an FEI horse if I wanted to, which I don't. So nobody asked me because I'm not selling Lulu.
Yeah. No, for sure. And then in contrast, Lauren, what would you say your favorite part of the sport is?
I like I said before, I love when they start on my farm as babies in a muddy field. They're feral. You can't put a halter on them. You can't, trimming their feet's the whole thing. They're wild animals. They're livestock at that point, right? The babies, it's like a whole ordeal doing the feet. We got to bring them in. They're screaming, taking the doors down. Don't let it jump out the window. That thing. And then when you go down when you canter your first center line at FEI on that feral orangutan, it's so cool because it's your work and the horse is working with you. And I love that. And people who buy their horses or whatever, like I understand why you do it, but man, you're missing out. It's so cool to develop them. And again, their first tempi changes. The first time you do ones, you do a 1-1 and the horse gets it and understands it. And when they understand it, they're not stressed about it. So when you reach that point, in the training and the communication with the horse, I love that. It's so fun. And like with Lilu, she's just 10 now, and she's really understanding the Grand Prix now. Last year we did it, but it was very green. But she was really good because she's like super willing. But this year she's got the strength now and the comprehension, the understanding, and it's really cool. I'm like, last year it was like, please pee off. now it's like, can you pee off a little more? And she's like, hell yeah, I can. So that's really cool. It's really fun.
Yeah, I love it. And Lauren, in your opinion, what makes a good horse person?
Oh boy. I think, the number one thing for me is, well, there's two things. One is emotional stability, right? You can't bring your crap into the arena when you work with the horses. It's not fair. They don't understand why you're mad and being abrupt with your aids or cranky or whatever. Like, you have to leave it at the door. And I think that ability is so important to training horses and working with people, because it's the people that ride them. Because it's not fair to the animal for you to bring your baggage. If you had a fight with your husband, or your bank account's negative $5,000, ask me how I know, like that kind of thing, you have to set that aside. But for me, actually, it's almost become like a place of refuge, because no matter what crap is going on, because there's always crap going on, especially in big business, right? Everyone has crap in their life, right? When I get on the horses, I have to drop it. And that's really great, because I can not think about it for a while and just be with the horse and live in the moment. So I think that's really cool. The second thing that I think is really important, and I try to instill this in the young professionals, the young people that work for me, or people that I, encounter in the wild that take clinics or whatever, is just empathy for the animal, right? Like, the horse does not wake up in the morning wanting to do Grand Prix. Okay. The horse doesn't say, oh, I want to go to the Olympics, but the horse is a generous enough creature that it will go with you. So let's make their lives as nice as possible. Like, don't handle them roughly if you had a bad Tinder date, right? And, I work with a lot of early 20-year-old people whose, emotional development is in progress, shall we say. So that's a really big thing to me, is that you need to just have empathy for the animal, because the horses didn't choose this, right? But they're gracious enough to allow us to ride them. And we need to be respectful of that, I think.
Beautifully said, Lauren. Beautifully said. And then last but not least, we had a couple of fun questions. Do you have any competition superstitions?
Yes. Yes, I do. When I bridle them to go to the ring, this is a funny one. This is a stupid one. They are to get 4 sugar cubes, not 3, not 5, not 2, not 1. It has to be 4.
4.
It has to be 4. I can't even begin to tell you why or when that originated. When I'm eventing, the breastplate has to go on first. It has to. You cannot put the saddle on first. It has to be breastplate, then saddle. Like, if I put the saddle on first, I will take it off and put the breastplate on. Or if somebody's helped me tack, I'm like, nope. I mean, not say anything, because I don't want everyone to think I'm insane, but now all your listeners are going to know. The breastplate has to go on first. So if you're tacking for me and you put the saddle on, I'll wait till you walk around the corner. I'll take it back off, put the breastplate on, and put the saddle back on. And hope you don't notice that I'm psycho. As far as other competition things, like, I braid my own horses. The only time I'd ever have somebody braid my horse is if it's like at Devon and we have the breed show going on too, and it's just chaos. And maybe I can't get to the ring in time, so I'll have somebody else throw the braids in. But I like to, put my AirPods in and either listen to some side music that I like, or a podcast or something. But I like to just kind of close out and just sit with the horse for a minute, because I think when you're braiding and, grooming the horses, I do not all of my own grooming, but I do a lot of my own grooming at the shows. And I really actually enjoy it. So you get to know how they're feeling, where they're at mentally, how their body's feeling, how their minds are feeling. So that's kind of the thing. I like to braid them and kind of just be with the horse and be like, okay. The other thing I do is like for the Grand Prix or anytime it's something really important, I when they ring the bell, I'll like lean over and say something silly to the horse that I'm probably not going to repeat here on this podcast, but like I'll say something, but like just silly things like that. I'm really just like an overgrown amateur lady, to be honest. It's really true.
I love it. And I think we know the answer to this, Lauren, but maybe not. Mares or geldings?
Oh, mares. I love my mares. Mares are the best. The mares are I just love them. When I shop for young horses, I buy mostly mares. Occasionally I buy a colt who will usually end up as a gelding. I keep a stallion every once in a while. But like mares, man, I love them. I love them so much. They have so much heart. And all of my event horses are mares. And most my best competition horses in dressage are also mares. But when they say you get a mare on your side, she'll fight for you, man, they are not lying. They are not lying. And I personally think people who are like, oh, I don't like mares, I think they're not very good horse people. And I do them. So there's that, because mares are incredible and they're nuanced and they don't put up with crap. And I relate.
Yeah. And Lauren, when you're not riding, if you're ever not riding, where can we find you? Or is there anything, fun people might not know about you?
Not really. I mean, if I'm not doing dressage, I'm eventing. And then, I don't really go on vacation because I don't like sitting on a beach. I'm like way too like hyperactive for that. So my vacations, like I went to Paris with Alice. I went to Ermelo for the World Young Horse Championships with Alice. Been to Rotterdam, been to Aachen a couple times. Those are my vacations. Oh, we went to World Cup in Omaha when Alice rode. I groomed for her. It was awesome. Like that's vacation for me. Like I love that. So, Michael's always like, why don't you just take a real vacation and stop going to like a horse show on your vacation? And I'm like, why? And then, so like, okay, so Devon is going on right now, Jumper Devon, not dressage Devon, Jumper Devon. So like at night when I'm done, if I have computer work to do or something, I put freaking Devon on, clip my horse. Like I watched the arena eventing because I had a bunch of friends in it. I watched the combined driving eventing because I had friends in that. It was so cool. So what do I do with my spare time? Watch horse shows in other countries. Like I'm a nerd. I'm a loser. Like I love it. Like I'm obsessed. Like I love to watch the shows. When I watched Burley, I watched badminton. I go to Kentucky every year. This year I went out to the 5-star and I have a very good friend who has a big training barn right outside of Lexington. So she's like, come to a clinic. And I was like, excuse. So I taught like a mini clinic. I drove out to Lexington. I stayed at her farm. I taught her and her girls. And then I went to the cross country.
Oh, it was amazing.
Yeah. So we made it a combined trip. So I got to have my little vacation for like 7 hours. And then I also taught. So it was really fun. Like that was great. Like, but I've been going to Kentucky for 100 years now. So that's what I do when I'm not riding is I go to horse shows because I'm a nerd.
just cover like look at different disciplines for sure.
Yeah. But I love the jumpers. Obviously I love eventing. I mean, I also like many women, I love a good murder podcast. But I drive a lot because I show a lot. So there's podcasts on all the time. Some of them about horses, some of them are about killing people. Like it's, goes together, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, so funny. Well, Lauren, I know we covered a lot of ground and topics today, but is there anything whatsoever I just didn't think to ask you that you wanted to add to our conversation?
I think I would say if I could give a bit of advice to the young professional who's struggling, because we're all struggling, Some of us are middle-aged and struggling. It's always a struggle. The main thing that you can do is just don't quit. Just don't give up. Like this horse that I showed last week in the intermediate A, I've had that horse since he was a foal. I've started that horse. He's been tricky. He's a really good boy. He's never naughty, but his balance is very complicated. And I tried to give this horse to Michael, my coach, several times. I'm like, can you just take this horse? It's so talented. Can you just take it to the Olympics? Because I cannot ride it. I am not good enough to ride it. And, he was always like, no, this is your horse and you're going to learn how to ride it. And like, I just kept picking away at it. And I mean, we would go and lose, 62, 64, 62, 64. And now at 9 years old, it's starting to come together. And he got 69 last weekend and one of his first IAs. And he's 9 years old and he's fantastic. And it's just like, just don't quit, even when the going gets tough. And I don't quit on the horses either. Like if they're tricky, if they're hard, like it's a puzzle. Figure it out. That's your job as a trainer, is to figure it out. And whatever you learn from that, you will take to the next 100 horses. So for the young professionals, like when the going gets tough, don't quit, because you will get through it. Just stick around long enough. But everybody wants to get off the bus when it gets a little uncomfortable. But get comfortable being uncomfortable, kids.
Excellent advice, Lauren. Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for joining and talking with us today. We loved having you and hearing all of your wisdom.
I don't know about that, but I don't know if it's wisdom, but it's certainly something. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Dressage Today podcast. And a big thank you to the episode sponsor, Tribute. You can subscribe to the Dressage Today podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you listen. While you're there, please rate and review the show. Thanks again for joining us. I'm Alana Harrison, and you've been listening to the Dressage Today podcast.